I only get like 3 weeks of vacation. I've worked it out. So I've got my first meet squared away, and we talked about that one was quite the experience. I ran really well too there too. And then, we're trying to line up the rest of the meets. And so I really don't have much of a choice.
Right.
The same race director is directing the next race. So it's like, all right, I'll pace for you, and before I know it, I was going to be pacing 51, the B heat, which is the slower heat. And then the pacer backs out of the pacing duties for the A heat. And so they ask me, and I'm like, I don't really have much of a choice, but I'm like,
sure.
I ran a 49 split once in college in a 4x4. I was like, I think I could do this, although it's not something I'm really training for.
Right.
So it's like, sure, we go from 51.5 to 50.5 I'll kind of fast forward. By the time we're starting, they're asking for a 50 flat or sub 50.
Yeah.
And like off a standing start, it's not somebody handing me the baton.
Right.
Like no running start or anything. And I mean, it is a huge meet. There's Olympians. There's future Olympians in that race. It's on national Belgium television with the big old, camera shining up and introducing everybody, and a lot of stress and pressure to perform. Before I know it, like the gun's off and we're all out sprint, and I'm all out as fast as I can go. And I look over,
50 seconds as
and I look
fast as
over
possible.
After 100 meters of a 400 meter pacing job, and like they're like parallel to me, and I haven't moved over, and I haven't even moved over all the way to like start pacing this heat. And so I'm like thinking like I'm all out, but I've still got a little bit left. So I burn my guns. Like I just do everything I can to get in front of them. So I'm at 150, and I feel like I'm spent. And I've got I haven't even made it even close to 400. I haven't even made it to 200, and I'm like, it is just the difference between where I'm at in my athletic abilities and where like Olympians are
You're
at.
not training for that race
exactly.
either.
And I'm not training for that race.
But you did have to get ahead, right?
I had to get ahead, and so before I know it, it's like 200 meters, and they're passing me. And so I mean, it was an awful experience. But I'm thinking like I am just going to slow these guys down, and so I bail off the track.
Yeah.
Which is like I felt terrible because I mean they're here to run really fast. They're relying on.
But like you did not expect to be doing that, of course.
I didn't.
Right?
It got out of hand.
Yeah.
I mean, there was the job, and then the job changed.
And then they're like, oh no, you can do 51.
I mean,
actually, no, can you do this? No.
It was that.
I mean, I can't say no, but at the same time, I'll give it all I can. Right? It's like,
and I felt awful. I mean, I went around and talked to the racer. The race director was utterly pissed off, and I've never understood like a French person cuss before, but I could understand everything he was saying.
The F word translates.
It does. It sure does. So does the S word and a whole bunch of other 4-letter words. But it was quite the experience. And then you really to go talk to like Olympian runners afterwards and just apologize. So like I'm really sorry, guys, and it kind of shut them up. They were literally talking about it after the race, and I'm going up to talk to them. And they need, in something Mark had even mentioned, is a lot of the U.S. and Canadian runners kind of were around this college campus somehow, staying in the dorms or in apartments nearby. And while he flew over to Ireland, it's part of the story too, I'm taking a bus to the meet. And I have to take a bus back. Yeah. And so I'm sitting
with all these guys.
With a lot of these guys. Literally, one was from Belgium, sitting right behind me, talking how bad the pacing job of the 800 was. It felt like the whole 2 hours he was talking. Like, I'm like, part of me was like, I wanted to turn around. It's like, that was me. That was me. I get it. I get it.
Can't apologize anymore.
I mean, I don't know how much more time we have, but I mean, I could talk another hour about it. But I'll kind of speed it up. Like, I tried to get to the next meet. They didn't let me in. I'll let Mark jump in on his Ireland piece, but I was ready to go home that night. I was like, this is a pointless trip. I'm glad I didn't.
Right.
I stuck it out, worked out a couple more times, and then really my next 2 races, the 1500 and the 800, were my PRs.
Yeah.
So it's one of those stories of like, you fall flat on your face, don't give up. I have it, my 2 PRs in the 15 and the 8, and one of them was like, Brad said I was beat Mark.
Edit that out.
It was my best race ever. I got second in Virton, Belgium, and I had a great time down there, or up there or whatever. But I couldn't go over to Mark because it's my worst day ever, and he's having his best day over.
Yeah, the flip side of that story.
Yeah, because
you're
like, probably calling him saying, "You'd never guess what happened," and he's like, "Oh no, you'll never guess what happened."
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Yeah. So I couldn't get into this meet that he was pacing at, but I did get into a mile, and that's why I was over there that year. Is I wanted to run the mile.
Yeah.
And there aren't very many opportunities to do that. So I had an opportunity to run a mile in Dublin the same day. And so I had taken a Ryanair flight over there, cheap budget here.
Just you and your backpack. That's all you need, because it'll charge you everything else if you don't. Yeah.
And I'm at the mile. It's called the Morton Mile. It's a Morton Invitational there in Dublin, and it's a big meet. This is a meet that has history going back like into the 1940s, and had world records in the 2 mile in the 1950s. My college coach, who ended up winning 40 national championships, he was from Ireland, and he set records on that track, a long time ago. So there's all this history.
So it's like the St. Andrews of running, then.
It's generally like that. Yeah. But in 2009, there was a bit of a down year in sponsorship. It's probably the year after the Olympics, maybe just kind of a down year overall. And so I come in there, and the field's really not as hot as it usually is. It's me and a couple other good Americans and a Canadian and one of my college teammates from Kenya that I finally managed to beat for the only time in my career. But and so I'm in this mile, and I had one of the days of my life. It's like, this is easy. I'm running 4-minute pace, and this feels easy. And so I sat and then just kicked, and I don't often outkick people for a win, but I outkicked them for a win. I ran like 401.2, and I thought, man, I just squandered my best opportunity ever to run under 4 minutes. I felt like I could have run 3:57 that day, but it was a race, And so the prize is €1,000, and they bring this, big heavy trophy. It's like the U.S. Open, It's like the names on this trophy are like, Olympic champions and record. I mean, it's just like, and then there's Mark Thompson, 2009, and so we go to the clubhouse that night by the track, and guys are. Toasting to me and like buying me Guinnesses.
Did you fill it up?
It was unbelievable. Like it was like in running heaven. I've never had a running night like that in my life.
Whereas he's on this bus.
That's exactly right.
Complete opposite.
And so I fly back to Belgium, and we meet up for pizza. And Sam is literally, I mean, he's I'm lucky he didn't already purchase his ticket home. Yeah. I mean, he was ready to go. And I'm wanting to share my fun news with him, And we had a fun conversation in a pizza shop there, and convinced Sam to kind of just wait, hang out a little bit. You're here, let's just keep going. But suddenly I was his friend, but also like his counselor, and we were able to keep him there.
Yeah, and then like I said, you went on and ran your 2 PRs from literally coming from the worst place probably mentally that you've been to running in these 2 races. It's good that you got into those 2 races, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, hopefully, the race director doesn't call someone else and be like, no,
don't let that guy.
We've seen this guy.
Guy's bad luck. You do not want this guy. Somebody talked me into putting him in a race as a pacer, and I don't want to trust him at all.
But we had 2 races left of equivalent mile distance. Yeah. We had the 1,500 meters, and I didn't feel wonderful that night. In fact, Sam came around me with about 50 meters to go, and just blitzed it and ran his lifetime best, and had one of the days of his life, actually, Are
you smiling as you pass him?
Oh, yeah.
Just like, do you have the awareness in you that you're just like, got you?
Yeah. And then that was the last race, or maybe there's one more, and then there was a mile at the very end of it. It was the last race over there, and I knew it was going to be. So I literally had one chance to try to capitalize on it. Sam was in the race as well. And was able to come home, from that race with a 3:59 to my name, 3:59.29, and just it made everything worth it. You know,
Yeah.
I was 30 years old,
Right.
and you know, since I was 18 years old, people were telling me you should do this, you know, and it's just one of those itches that needed to get scratched, and you know, it just was really, really gratifying to finish it like that.
You know, he probably doesn't think of it this way, but the first thing that came to my mind was that he was so pissed off that you beat him that he spurred him on to run that.
There you go.
No doubt about it.
Right?
I did not
he
like.
handed it to me in that mile. Yeah. But some of the cool things about that is like I think you know, there's literally a record of U.S. sub 4 milers. Like there's a historical list, and Mark is on that list. It's pretty impressive. And
329. That's my number.
Yeah.
And then same thing. There's very finite. There's not many Oklahomans that have subbed for.
Who are the other three?
There was one guy from Lawton that did it like in the early 80s. I actually don't know. I think I was either the second or the third native Oklahoma.
Yeah.
You know, some Oklahoma college kids from other places have done it, but you know, Oklahoma born was either the second or the third. And then one of the athletes that I coached wasn't born in Oklahoma, but Frazier Legeese, coached him at Oklahoma Christian. He ended up going under 4 minutes as well. So
That's not a long list of 4 people. That's like I am one of 4 at something, and that's a pretty good thing to have.
well, if you narrow down the constraints, you know, that far, well, okay, I must.
I mean, it's still like you said, like it's all of that training and that goal, and like to finally get there. It's on the last race, right? Of being
that was my last chance. I don't think I could have done it another year. I started head coaching. No longer was I assisting; I was the head coach.
Yeah.
And I pulled Sam on as an assistant, and so responsibilities were growing. And I had I not done it then, I don't know that I would have done it.